Hey guys, today we're going to take a look at motifs from the International Quilt Studies Center and Museum, and we're going to make some little thumbnail sketches. These are just little tiny sketches, about 4 inches or so, and they help you kind of get some ideas about how figure ground relationships play a role in pattern making. So let's go! It starts with the motif, and the motif is just a dot. Think of it as one unit. And when you repeat it horizontally, you get a row. Repeat it horizontally and vertically, you get a grid pattern. And you can organize these lots of different ways. But it all comes back to the motif and what that motif is doing in the space. So this damask pattern is a bunch of shapes in close proximity to one another, and that makes a singular unit or a motif. And when placed in repeat, you get a damask pattern. But one thing that plays a big role in this is how these shapes respond to the background, and figure ground theory has a lot to do with this. So here you see a vase, or you see two faces looking at one another. In this case, I've made a motif of some basic shapes. They're just the white shapes are the figure, and they're sitting on a black ground. And when placed into repeat, it actually looks like black shapes on a white background, with some white shapes that also sit on the surface. And when you change the scale of that same motif, things change dramatically. So now it just looks like a bunch of white shapes on a black background. So figure ground changes relative to scale and proximity. Here's another example. Probably a white background with some black shapes overlapped by some white shapes. And when you set it into repeat, something different happens. It really looks like, by and large, you have white shapes that's sitting on a black background. What you're going to be doing in this next assignment is going to the Quilt Studies Center and looking at their collection online. And I want you to look both broadly at the quilt and then up close at the individual motifs. You're going to look at this and you'll say, for the first one, dark and light shapes combine to make a dark surface. So you have both light and dark shape. This is dark and light shapes make a dark surface. By and large, you'd say this is probably the dark colored quilt, but it has both light and dark in it. And in this case, you would probably say that is the light colored quilt if you had to have a choice. So you're going to sketch out a couple of these motifs next to one another. You're also going to look for things where dark shapes come forward and light shapes recede. Here's another example. You're going to look for light shapes that come forward in space and dark recedes. And that happens here too. But you don't have to draw the whole thing. You can draw maybe one or two of the motifs next to some of the other motifs that are dark. Last one you're going to look for is overlapping shapes. And overlapping shapes tend to come forward. Things that sit on the surface, like in this example here, the white shapes, tend to look like they're in front of the pattern shapes in the background. So while you're drawing these thumbnail sketches, you're not looking necessarily for details, but more importantly, you're looking for the shape relationships and the relationship of dark and light patterns and motifs and their proximity to one another, and how that in a pattern can create dark or light surfaces and different figure grounds. Here are some examples of what your thumbnails are going to look like. They shouldn't take you long to draw.
We did more shallow.